It was the end of October, and the weather gods were just finishing off their quota of heavy downpour. The cold hadn't set in yet, at least here in the city, but it was a completely different story that was brewing somewhere else. Let me tell you the story of the most adventurous trip I've had to this date. Welcome to my trek to Buran Pass. Amongst the speculation of bad weather, natural disasters, and the desperation of this being the last opportunity of the year to cross the pass, I decided to go ahead and face the situations as and when they came. After all, that's what a trek is all about, right? I started my journey from Mumbai and boarded a flight to Delhi. From Delhi, I was supposed to take an overnight bus to Shimla, which was our pickup point. From Shimla, our plan was to hop into a jeep and continue our journey for 7 more hours to reach the starting point of the trek, that was Janglikh. The total journey was of almost 24 hours, covering around 2000 kilometers only to reach the starting point of the trek. However, my adventure began early as my flight got delayed and made me miss my subsequent bus to Shimla. That is when a friend of mine in Delhi helped me out and dropped me to a point where I was able to get another bus. I reached Shimla at around 8:30 the next morning and met the fellow trekkers. We neither freshened up nor did we eat anything. We just rushed for the jeep since we were already running late and had to beat the clock as it was impossible to reach Janglikh after dark. It was a bumpy yet beautiful ride from Shimla as we passed the quaint villages of Rodu and Chidgaon. The route through the ghats and the pine forests were sights worth $1,000,000, but this was just the beginning. What lay ahead was simply going to blow our minds away. We reached Janglik just before sunset. It was a small village that time must have forgotten. No roads, no connectivity, hidden deep into the majestic Himalayas at an altitude of 9,000 feet. Old traditional houses and innocent smiling faces, all surrounded by the mighty snow capped mountains. And by the way, the temperature at sunset here was flirting the 0-degree mark while we struggled to acclimatize to the altitude and the freezing cold. We walked around for a bit and then visited the village temple to take blessings for our upcoming days. We had a short briefing from our trek leaders and retired for the day in one of the warm wooden homestays. Next morning, we woke up early, had our breakfasts, and started the trek with lots of enthusiasm and heavy rucksacks. Today's destination was Dayara Thach, a huge meadow surrounded by rolling hills and pointy peaks. Today's trek was just around 7 kilometers, but what made it difficult was the altitude we were at. After climbing for around 4 hours, we stopped for tea and lunch at an old cottage in the middle of nowhere. I could tag this nowhere as a place so unreal that I just could not believe a place so pretty can even exist. After re energizing ourselves, we started the trek again. 2 more hours through the dense pine forests, rocky boulders, and small grasslands, the weather started to change. The dark clouds had now taken over the clear blue skies as I was about to witness the first snowfall of my life.
तो ये पूरा दायरा अरे वाह
We reached the campsite by late afternoon. Dayara was the most beautiful campsite that I had ever been to. A vast green meadow right in the middle of the Pabbar Valley. We had only been there for a while, in which we pitched our tents when the gentle snowfall started to show its wrath. We quickly went inside the common tent as the snowfall slowly turned into a snowstorm. The speculations of bad weather were starting to turn true. The green landscape had completely changed to white in a matter of few minutes. Mountains always find a way to make us humble. We could feel the nature carrying our fates in his hands and quickly realized that we were nothing more than puppets to it. We spent the entire evening and night in the freezing cold. The temperature might have been -10. We kept dusting our tents the whole night to prevent them from getting buried under the snow. At last, we woke up at around 3:30 and hopefully waited for the sun to rise in search of some warmth. And when it came, we witnessed the birth of what felt the most glorious morning of our lives. It was a sight to behold as the sun rays sparkled on the fresh white snow cover. To start with, we wanted to soak in as much sun as possible and hence had our breakfast sitting on snow in the open. We spent the entire day to reach our next campsite as we hoped for the weather to clear up. This is when more bad news came our way. The weather was predicted to get worse going ahead. We could see the storms accumulating at distant peaks ahead of us, and one wrong decision at this stage could prove fatal. We decided to wait till the next day and assess the situation then. The next day was an acclimatization day. We went on to climb a nearby peak. The climb was steep and slippery from the recent snowfall. After the treacherous ascent, we reached the top and the view was all worth it. The snow-covered valley in front of us simply enhanced the beauty of the place multiple folds. This was what a trek was all about. You grind all day and in the end, you are returned with something so rewarding that all the grind feels worth it. This is what life is all about. As we submerged ourselves into the nature, more bad news came our way. And this time, it was the worst of them all. The government had directed all the trekkers on the trail to return back due to the bad weather. Mountaineering is about testing our own skills and not the nature. The primary motive is always to be back safe. Going ahead in such conditions would have been nothing but stupidity. We could see the pass just a few kilometers away from us. This was the point in time that with a very heavy heart, we reluctantly decided to turn around and come back again the next year. So you might ask, that's it? Months of preparations all in vain? Not at all. A trek is always about the journey rather than the destination. I was blessed to witness some amazing landscapes, magnificent peaks, beautiful rivers, mesmerizing valleys, quaint villages, and countless cultural changes during this trek. I also met some wonderful people with whom I remain in touch to this day. And that was Buran Pass for me. This trek will hold a very special place in my heart and constantly remind me of the fact that there is both light and dark to everything. Buran Pass, a place so divine that can become so violent and harsh so quickly.